Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1958 Cleveland Indians MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games in Cleveland were played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, on the site where First Energy Stadium now stands. The Tribe had a solid year in 1958. They finished in fourth place with a record of 77-76. One game over 500, winning percentage of .503, 14 and a half games out of first. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 92-62, winning percentage of .597. Second place, the Chicago White Sox, 82-72. Third place, the Boston Red Sox, 79-75. Fourth place, the Cleveland Indians, 77-76. Fifth place, the Detroit Tigers, 77-77. Sixth place, the Baltimore Orioles, 74-79. Seventh place, the Kansas City Athletics, 73-81. And in eighth and last place, the Washington Senators, 61-93, winning percentage of .396, 31 games out of first. Attendance for Tribe games at home was 663,805, or an average of 8,677 fans per game. So attendance was down. On December 4th of 1957, Early Wynn and Al Smith were traded to the White Sox for Minnie Minoso and Fred Hatfield. In 1958, Stan Musial of the St. Louis Cardinals became the eighth player in MLB history to have 3,000 hits. In 1958, Cuba was the best place for winter baseball to help young players to develop in the off-season. Of course, that changed with the communist takeover of Cuba under Fidel Castro. 1958 was the first year for the Los Angeles Dodgers and the first year for the San Francisco Giants. The teams had moved from New York City. The days of team travel by train were winding down, and more teams were traveling by airplanes. In 1958, batting helmets were required to be worn by all players for the first time. I read a fine book. The title is Whatever Happened to Super Joe? Catching Up with 45 Good Old Guys from the Bad Old Days of the Cleveland Indians by Russell Schneider, 2006. Team revenue for the Tribe ticket sales was down. However, broadcast revenues were up from radio and television. Jack Torrey wrote, quote, "People were not coming to the stadium. They were staying home and watching the Indians on television." With Hank Greenberg gone, the Big Seven, the Tribe ownership group, wanted a quick fix. They wanted excitement. They wanted Frank Lane. On January 28, 1958, Brooklyn Dodgers star catcher Roy Campanella was involved in a very serious car accident. He never walked again. He was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and it was the end of his playing career. He died in 1993 at age 71. After the accident, he was in the hospital for a long time, and he received get-well cards in the hospital. Campanella wrote, quote, And then I got a kick out of one from the Cleveland Indians. Each player wrote me an individual card saying he hoped I'd get well soon, and signed his name, and I thought that was very nice of them. Being in the American League, too. And Frank Lane, the general manager at Cleveland, also wrote me a nice letter. Thinking on trouble? I know that when it strikes, if you can manage to meet it head on, smile at it, and roll up your sleeves to beat it, God takes a hand. He gives you an inner strength. It don't show like muscles, maybe, but it's stronger and more lasting than muscles. I found that to be so. I don't really have much anymore in the way of muscles, but I got something else that's better and stronger, God. Doug Kirkle wrote, quote, that the Tribe, quote, ownership group decimated the player development program. Highly effective scouts, including Steve O'Neill and others, were fired. So this was disaster for the future. Now, Joe DiMaggio had been a star for the San Francisco Seals in the Pacific Coast League. Regarding Willie Mays in the '58 San Francisco Giants, James S. Hirsch wrote, quote, "Just as Mickey Mantle could never fill Joe DiMaggio's shoes in Yankee Stadium, neither could Willie Mays in San Francisco. Mays was booed in San Francisco. He had trouble buying a house because he was black. I'm reading a fine book. The title is Ted and Me by Dan Gutman, 2012. This involves time travel to 1953 in the Korean War with Ted Williams when he was flying an airplane on a bombing mission, and 1941 when Ted Williams was shooting to hit 400 and hit 406. Now the head of the ownership group for the tribe in 1958 was William R. Daley, who was the principal tribe owner from 1957 to 1962. As a youngster, Daley was an usher at League Park for tribe games and worked for Cyrus Eaton and John D. Rockefeller. William R. Daley. Now the Cleveland sports writers got their wish. Hank Greenberg was gone, and the man that they wanted, Frank Lane, became the new general manager. Frank Lane was the tribe GM from 1958 to 1960. He was born in 1896 in Cincinnati, Ohio, and died in 1981 in Dallas, Texas at age 85. He was the general manager of the Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Cardinals, Cleveland Indians, Kansas City Athletics, and Milwaukee Brewers. As a young man, Lane played pro football for a number of teams in the Ohio League, which existed before the creation of the NFL. He was also a referee for football and basketball games. In 1933, he was the traveling secretary for the Cincinnati Reds. He's also GM for the Durham baseball team at Durham, North Carolina baseball team in the minors, Durham Bulls. 1936, he was assistant GM for the Reds. The Second World War, Lane served for 4 years in the U.S. Navy. 1946, he became GM of the Kansas City Blues, the New York Yankees' top farm team. For 2 years, he was president of the American Association in the minor leagues. 1948, he became GM of the White Sox and held that position for 7 years. And during his career, he made 241 trades. By 1955, he was GM of the Cardinals and tried to trade Stan Musial, but was stopped by the owner, August Busch. As Tribe GM, he traded Rocky Colavito in 1960 to the Detroit Tigers for Harvey Keene, and the most hated trade in Tribe history led to what was called the curse of Rocky Colavito. 1962, he was GM of the Chicago Zephyrs in the NBA. 1965, he was an Orioles scout for 6 years. At age 75, he became GM of the Brewers. He was also a scout for the California Angels and the Texas Rangers. They called him Trader Lane and Frantic Frank and the Wheeler Dealer. He made 400 trades. He traded Norm Cash, Rocky Colavito, Roger Maris, Enos Slaughter, Red Shane Dienst, and Early Wynn. In 1960, with the Tribe, he traded manager Joe Gordon to Detroit for Jimmy Dykes, also a manager. He died in a Dallas, Texas nursing home at age 85. In Bobby Bragan's book, You Can't Hit the Ball with the Bat on Your Shoulder, Bragan was asked by MLB Commissioner Bowie Kuhn to represent MLB at the funeral of Frank Lane, and he was the only baseball official there. After he became the Tribe GM, Frank Lane, in 1958, he made 18 transactions. Trades, sales, purchases involving 42 players. Jimmy Dudley said, quote, "You have to understand this about Frank Lane. He could talk himself into any job. He had a real knack for figuring out what people wanted to hear. Then he would tell it to them." Hank Peters said, quote, "Fans loved trades, and Frank Lane loved to make trades. The media loved him, followed him, and wrote about him more than any other general manager. He did make fans pay attention and wonder what he would do next." Jack Torrey wrote, quote, "Frank Lane was the man who, at the end of 1957, assumed control of the Cleveland Indians with its rich minor league system that promised a limitless future. He ran the Indians for just 3 years, but his legacy was felt for decades. He is remembered chiefly for two things: trading Roger Maris and Rocky Colavito. As White Sox GM, Lane had been successful, and he turned the team from losers into winners. During his 7 years there, the value of the franchise doubled." Jack Torrey wrote, quote, "Frank Lane was obsessed with the Tigers' Harvey Keene. Keene sprayed the ball to all fields, rarely struck out, and could play either shortstop or right field." Tom Clavin and Danny Peary wrote, quote, "Frank Lane proceeded to eviscerate the team Hank Greenberg assembled over the years." Frank Lane. Jimmy Dudley was back as Tribe radio broadcaster. Dudley was a Tribe broadcaster from 1948 to 1967. When he was 18 years old, he shaved his head in high school as a prank after he graduated. And then that summer he worked as a lifeguard. And he said, quote, "I got such a bad sunburn on my head that my hair never grew back. I've been bald since I was 18. He had a southern accent. Dudley was from Virginia. Many MLB announcers were Southerners. Dudley said, quote, "Our accents appealed to people. They were sort of graceful. They fit in with the game. Dixie speaking is slow, leisurely, and baseball is that kind of game. Nobody was more of a homer than I was. I loved the Indians. They were my life. I hated the Yankees as much as any fan." Later in life, he made TV commercials for the Aluminum Siding Corporation with the famous telephone number Garfield 1-2323. Jimmy Dudley. Bob Neal was his broadcast partner on WERE radio, and Neal was a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1952 to 1953, and from 1957 to 1972. Bob Neal. Ken Coleman was back as a Tribe television broadcaster on WEWS-TV. Coleman was a Tribe TV broadcaster from 1954 to 1963, and a Cleveland Browns broadcaster from 1952 to 1965. And he's the father of Casey Coleman, who became a very well-known Cleveland sportscaster. Ken Coleman. Bill McColgan was his partner on WEWS-TV, and McColgan was a Tribe TV broadcaster from 1958 to 1960. He was a Cleveland Browns radio broadcaster from 1955 to 1960. Bill McColgan. Bobby Bragan was the new manager for the Tribe in 1958. He just managed the Tribe in 58, just for 1 year. Bragan was born in 1917 in Birmingham, Alabama, and died in 2010 in Fort Worth, Texas at age 92. During his playing career, he batted .240 with 15 home runs and 172 RBIs. Bragan played for the Philadelphia Phillies and Brooklyn Dodgers from 1940 to 1948. As a manager, he was .443 and .478 for a winning percentage of .481. He was a manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1956 to 57, the Tribe in 58, the Milwaukee Braves from 63 to 65, and the Atlanta Braves in 66. He was also a coach for the LA Dodgers in 60 and the Houston Colt 45s in 62. Bragan was an innovator with a sense of humor and an umpire baiter. He was the oldest manager ever ejected from a pro game at age 87 when he was managing the Fort Worth Cats in the minors. With the Tribe in 1958, he only managed the team for part of the year. For 67 games, his record was 31-36, and he was fired on June 26th. In the minors, he played for the Fort Worth Cats. He was a manager in the minors for the Fort Worth Cats and won titles in 48 and 49. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Army. In 1947, he was a teammate for the Brooklyn Dodgers with Jackie Robinson and opposed Robinson and the integration of baseball, but later changed his mind. He said, quote, "After just one road trip, I saw the quality of Jackie, the man and the player. I told Branch Rickey I had changed my mind, and I was honored to be a teammate of Jackie Robinson." He helped Maury Wills to develop. He was a manager in the minors for the Spokane Indians. In 1969, he was the president of the Texas League. He worked in the Texas Rangers front office in 1979. He established the Bobby Bragan Youth Foundation scholarships. In the minors, he played for the Panama City Pelicans and the Pensacola Pilots. He was a Montreal Expos broadcaster. When Frank Lane fired Bobby Bragan, he said, quote, "Bobby, I don't know how we're going to get along without you, but starting tomorrow, we're going to try." There's folklore that Bragan after he was fired, put a curse on the team, and Bragan said, quote, "I didn't put a hex on the club. Having Frank Lane as the general manager was curse enough." Bobby Bragan. His replacement as Tribe manager was Joe Gordon, who was hired on June 26. Joe Gordon played for the Tribe from 1947 to 1950, was an important player for the 48 Tribe when they won the World Series. Gordon was a Tribe manager from 1958 to 1960, and he's in the Tribe Hall of Fame. Joe Gordon. The coaching staff included Mel Harder, who was the pitching coach, Harder played for the Tribe from 1928 to 1947, was the Tribe pitching coach from 1948 to 1963. He threw out the first pitch at the stadium in 1932, and the last ceremonial pitch at the stadium in 1993. Mel Harder. Red Kress was back, and Kress was a Tribe coach from 1953 to 1960. Red Kress. Bill Loeb was back as bullpen coach, and Loeb was a Tribe coach from 1951 to 1959. Eddie Stanky was back as a Tribe coach. Stanky was a Tribe coach from 1957 to 58. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. He continued in MLB baseball, and his last work was in 1977 as the manager for the Texas Rangers for one game. Eddie Stanky. Now the starting lineup, Russ Nixon was the catcher. Nixon batted .301 with 113 hits. He scored 42 runs, 17 doubles, 4 triples, 9 home runs, 46 RBIs, 13 walks in 113 games. And Nixon was with Cleveland from 1957 to 1960. Russ Nixon. Mickey Vernon was at first base. Vernon batted .293 with 104 hits. He scored 49 runs, 22 doubles, 3 triples, 8 home runs, 55 RBIs, 44 walks in 119 games. Vernon was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1950 and in 1958, so he was back after an absence of 8 years. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. He continued in MLB as a player until 1960 and as a manager until 1963, and he played in the 1958 All-Star Game. Mickey Vernon. Bobby Avila was at second base. Avila batted .253 with 95 hits. He scored 54 runs, 21 doubles, 3 triples, 5 home runs, 30 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 55 walks in 113 games. Avila was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB playing career continued until 1959, and he continued playing in Mexico until 1960. Bobby Avila. Billy Hunter was the shortstop. Hunter batted .195 with 37 hits. He scored 21 runs, 10 doubles, 2 triples, 9 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 17 walks in 76 games. Hunter was born in 1928 in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and is still alive in 2019 at age 91. During his playing career, he batted .219 with 16 home runs and 144 RBIs. He played for the St. Louis Browns, Baltimore Orioles, Kansas City Athletics, and Cleveland Indians from 1953 to 1958. So this was the end of his playing career. He was a coach for the Orioles from 1964 to 77, and as a manager of the Texas Rangers from 1977 to 78. He was also a scout for the Tribe and Orioles. He was an All-Star in 1953 with the St. Louis Browns. He's in the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame. In 1978, as manager of the Texas Rangers, he had a confrontation with pitcher Doc Ellis. And Ellis said about that Hunter, quote, maybe Adolf Hitler, but he ain't making no lampshade out of me. Hunter was fired after the season. He asked if he was sorry he took the job as manager of Texas, and he said yes. As his record as the Texas manager was 146 and 108. Winning percentage of .575. That was the end of his MLB career. He became the baseball coach and athletic director for Maryland's Towson State University from 78 to 95. The minors, he played for the Denver Bears, Fort Worth Cats, Newport News Dodgers, and Tri-Riviere Royals. Billy Hunter. Vic Power was at third base. Power batted .317 with 122 hits. He scored 63 runs, 24 doubles, 6 triples, 12 home runs, 53 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 13 walks in 93 games. Power was born in 1927 in Arecibo, Puerto Rico, and died in 2005 in Bayamon, Puerto Rico at age 78. For his career, he batted .284 with 126 home runs and 655 RBIs. Power played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Kansas City Athletics, Cleveland Indians, Minnesota Twins, Los Angeles Angels, Philadelphia Phillies, and California Angels. From 1954 to 1965. He was a 4-time All-Star in 1955, 56, 59, and 60. And he was the second Puerto Rican of African descent to play MLB after Hiram Gabriel Sosa and Hy Burhorn. As a child, he was punished by his father for playing baseball. His father died when he was age 13, so that meant he could play. He was signed by the Yankees. He's only one of 5 players to hit a leadoff and walk-off home run in the same game. One of 11 players to steal home twice in the same game. His real surname was Pellet. In the minors, he was playing for Drummondville in Quebec, Canada, and the fans laughed at his name because Pellet sounded like plot, which is French slang for vagina. So he changed his name to Power. Puerto Ricans were offended by the name change. In Puerto Rico, he used the name Victor Pellet. After he retired in Puerto Rico, he lived in Guaynabo, and there's the Parque Victor Pellet there. He helped youngsters to develop in Puerto Rico and in San Pedro de Macorís, Dominican Republic. Bill James said that Power was the main factor for San Pedro de Macorís becoming the world's richest source of baseball talent. He coached Roberto Alomar, Jerry Morales, and Willie Montanez. He's considered the second greatest Puerto Rican to play MLB baseball after Roberto Clemente. In 2000, the tribe ranked Power among the top 100 Cleveland Indians of all time. Bill James ranked Power the 81st greatest MLB first baseman of all time. Power had a sharp wit and dark, deadpan humor. In Syracuse, New York, in the minors, he entered a whites-only restaurant and was told that they didn't serve Negroes. And Power said he didn't eat Negroes and it was okay. August 14, 1958, at the stadium, Cleveland's Municipal Stadium, Power stole home twice in that game. He had the game-winning steal of home in the bottom of the 10th with the bases loaded and Rocky Colavito at the plate in a Tribe Tigers game. In a Tribe Tigers game, Leo DeRocher was the Tigers' coach, and Power was dancing off third. DeRocher told pitcher Frank Larry, "Don't worry about that monkey. He's just trying to make you wild." And Power said to DeRocher, "Now I know why Lorraine Day divorced you." He was in conflict with Jimmy Pearsall at one point. Power was at first base, and Pearsall was the runner. Power wanted to fight. Pearsall said, quote, "You don't want to kill me. I've got a big family to support." Power laughed, and so that was the end of their conflict. He was angry about getting hit. He would be angry about getting hit by the pitch and go to the managers of the opposition, who he believed were ordering these brushback pitches, and he would threaten them. Casey Stengel told Yankee pitchers, quote, "Don't wake him up." He was traded for Roger Maris. He got him in the trade for Roger Maris. And he said, quote, "I'm proud of that. If it wasn't for me, Maris wouldn't have beaten Babe Ruth. He would have played in Cleveland, where it's hard to hit homers. When Kansas City traded him to New York, he had that short right field in Yankee Stadium." There was a game at the stadium in Cleveland. An elderly fan behind the first base dugout was heckling Power, calling him a showboat. Power got angry, went to the stands and yelled at the fan. He later learned that it was Woody Hayes, the Ohio State football coach. Vic Power. Minnie Minoso is in left field. Minoso batted .302 with 168 hits. He scored 94 runs, 25 doubles, 2 triples, 24 home runs, 80 RBIs, 14 stolen bases, 59 walks in 149 games. Minoso was with Cleveland in 1949, 1951, and from 1958 to 1959, so he was back after 7 years. Minoso said, quote, "I liked Frank Lane. I liked him a lot. I used to call him Papa Number 2, and he used to call me and say, 'I want to speak to my son, Minnie Minoso.' I loved him. He always called me son, and he really meant it. It angers me that so many of the old ball players are not remembered as they should be. The writers don't mention the very guys who gave so much to the game. When you show respect for yourself and give it to others, the chances are great that you will get respect in return, no matter what your color or your origin. Too many people look for discrimination around every corner. That way they will always find it, often, perhaps when it really isn't there." Marcus Breton wrote, quote, "Minnie Minoso really put Latin players on the map in Major League Baseball. He could hit, he could run, he could throw, and he played the game with such unbelievable style. Latin players who came after him owe Minnie Minoso a debt of gratitude for opening the door and making Latin players legitimate in the major leagues." 1955 with the White Sox, he was hit by the pitch and had a fractured skull. He was traded back to Cleveland on December 4th of 1957 with Fred Hatfield for Early Wynn and Al Smith. Cal McLish said, quote, "Minnie Minoso was a winner. He was a joy to be around. When you have a guy like him, everybody else just seems to fall in line. A lot of players didn't play the game with the same enthusiasm as Minnie, but he just loved the game so much that he couldn't play it any other way. Heck, I was a fan of his when I was sitting on the bench and not pitching. I enjoyed watching him play. Orestes Minnie Minoso. Larry Doby was in center field. Doby batted .283 with 70 hits. He scored 41 runs, 16 doubles, a triple, 13 home runs, 45 RBIs, 26 walks in 89 games. Doby was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1955 and in 1958. So he was back after a 3-year absence. And this was the end of his time in Cleveland as a player the second time. He continued in MLB until 1959 as a player, and he played in Japan in 1962. He was a Tribe coach in 1974 and the manager of the White Sox in 1978. March of '58, he was traded by Baltimore with Don Ferrarese to the Tribe for Gene Woodling and Dick Williams and Bud Daly. Joseph Thomas Moore, his biographer, wrote, quote, "The trade reunited Doby with the team and the city, where he had played so well during his first 9 years in the major leagues. When Joe Gordon was named manager in June, he was Doby's first friend in white baseball, and he said, quote, I felt I had a new lease on life. I really wanted to play for Joe, but I ran into a bad case of injuries." In 1959, in February, Doby was traded to Detroit for Tito Francona. In May of '59, he was sold to the White Sox and who were owned by Bill Veeck. Doby said, quote, I felt joy. I felt a closeness, a very close relationship with Bill Veeck. Of course, he'd been signed by Veeck in '47 with Cleveland, first black player in the American League. By 1959, Doby was in the minors with Denver. In 1960, he was in the minors, and then he retired and became a scout for Bill Veeck and the White Sox. Again, in 1962, he played baseball in Japan with Don Newcomb. They were the first MLB players to play in Japan. Doby said, quote, I enjoyed it there. The Japanese people treated us with a lot of respect and fine hospitality. In 1968, Doby was an Expos scout. In '69, he worked with John Mayberry, who became a big star in the '70s. He tutored hitters and visited with the Expos teams in the minors. In '71, he was the Expos hitting coach. Doby said, quote, yes, this ranks right along with the thrills of personal performances and World Series victories. There were few black coaches at that time. He coached Ken Singleton, who said, quote, I just love the man. Every time I see him, I realize what he's done for me. He got me straightened out. He got my game together. I'm just thankful that he was around at the right time. He was a manager in Venezuela in the winter of '71-'72. He managed Toby Harrah and Ben Ogilvie. He was a Tribe coach in '74 under Tribe manager Ken Aspromonte. And Aspromonte said, quote, Larry can be a middleman between me and fellows like Charlie Spikes, George Hendrick, Chris Chambliss, and others. A lot of young players are reluctant to talk to the manager, but not with a coach of Larry Doby's stature. Doby said, quote, with Buddy Bell, with Oscar Gamble, and Jack Brohammer, and Frank Duffy, and John Lowenstein, they're a bunch of guys that were always kidding each other. I was always involved in it. There was pressure on MLB to hire a black manager, and there was a lot of speculation that Doby would become the first as the Tribe manager sometime in '74 or for '75. However, Frank Robinson was hired as the Tribe manager, first MLB black manager, and then he fired Larry Doby as coach. So Doby was gone again. In '75, he was the Expos minor league instructor. He coached Tony Bernazard, Gary Renicky, and Ellis Valentine. In '76, he was an Expos coach again. '77, Bill Veeck was the owner of the White Sox. He hired Doby as a coach. Bob Lemon was the manager, so it was a reunion of the '48 Tribe. He coached Alan Bannister, George Orta, Eric Soderholm, and Brian Downey, who all praised Doby. In '78, Lemon was fired on June 30th, and Doby became the manager of the White Sox. He said, quote, I was surprised and somewhat saddened. Bob Lemon and I have been friends since 1947. In 1998, Doby was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. In '94, the Tribe retired as number 14. Of course, there's a statue down by Progressive Field for Doby outside. Doby was proud that quote, Doby was proud to be, quote, a part in integrating baseball, to show people that we can live together, we can work together, and we can play together, and we can be successful together. Doby died in 2003 in Montclair, New Jersey at age 79. The first African-American player in the American League, and a very important player for the 1948 Cleveland Indians World Series champions. God bless Larry Doby. Rocky Colavito is in right field. Colavito batted .303 with 148 hits. He scored 80 runs, 26 doubles, 3 triples, 41 home runs. Wow. 113 RBIs. Gosh, 84 walks in 143 games. Colavito did a little pitching. He had no decisions and an ERA of 0.00. 1 game, 3 innings pitched, 0 earned runs allowed, and 1 strikeout. Colavito was a Tribe player from 1955 to 1959 and from 1965 to 1967. He was a Tribe coach in 1973 and from 76 to 78. He was third in the American League in the MVP vote in 1958. And he was in the 1958 Tribe Man of the Year. Herb Score said, quote, "With Rocky, his word is his bond. He is the most honorable man I know." In 2002, Colavito visited Cleveland, and there were fans who were asking for his autograph. A boy called Colavito, quote, his all-time favorite player. Colavito said, quote, "How can I be your favorite player when you weren't even born when I played here?" And the boy said, "Because my mother always told me about how good you were." Colavito said, "And if that doesn't warm your heart as it did mine, nothing will." Rocky Colavito. Billy Moran was a middle infielder, and now we're getting into the bench players. Moran batted .226 with 58 hits, 26 runs, 11 doubles, a home run, 18 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 13 walks in 115 games. Moran was born in 1933 in Montgomery, Alabama, and still alive in 2019 at age 85. For his career, he batted .263 with 28 home runs and 202 RBIs. Moran played for the Cleveland Indians and Los Angeles Angels from 1958 to 1965, so he was a rookie in 58. He was an All-Star in 62. He was in the U.S. military in 55 to 56. In the minors, he played for the Green Bay Blue Jays, Portland Beavers, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Spartanburg Peaches. Billy Moran. Billy Harrell played some infield. Harrell batted .218 with 50 hits. He scored 36 runs, 4 doubles, 7 home runs, 19 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 15 walks in 101 games. Harrell was with Cleveland in 1955, from 1957 to 58. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1961. Billy Harrell. Gary Geiger played some center field. Geiger batted .231 with 45 hits. He scored 28 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, a home run, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 27 walks in 91 games. Geiger did some pitching. He had no decisions and an ERA of 9.001 game, 2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs allowed, and 2 strikeouts. Geiger was born in 1937 in Sand Ridge Township, Illinois, and died in 1996 in Murfreesboro, Illinois at age 59. For his career, he batted .246 with 77 home runs and 283 RBIs. Geiger played for the Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox, Atlanta Braves, and Houston Astros from 1958 to 1970. He was a fast runner. He was second in the American League in 1962 with 18 stolen bases. One of 3 Red Sox players to hit an inside-the-park grand slam home run at Fenway Park. 1960, he had a collapsed lung and missed the last 2 months of the season. Geiger's 1961 Topps baseball card was featured in the 2000 film Skipped Parts as part of a baby's mobile at the end of the film. 1962 at Fenway Park, he ran into the wall there and was carried off the field on a stretcher. 1964, he had a bleeding ulcer. In 1965, he had a triple fracture on his left hand after diving, trying to catch a Tom McCraw double. 1971, he was a manager in the minors for the Cedar Rapids Cardinals. At age 22, all of his teeth were removed because they were too soft to take fillings. Gosh, he had dentures for the rest of his life. Geiger had a fear of flying. He would take drinks and get drunk before flights to endure team travel by air, and died of cirrhosis of the liver at age 59. Gary Geiger. Roger Maris played some outfield. Maris batted .225 with 41 hits. He scored 26 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 9 home runs, 27 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 17 walks in 51 games. Maris was with Cleveland from 1957 to 58. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB playing career continued until 1968. On June 15th, Maris, Dick Tomanek, and Preston Ward were traded to the Kansas City Athletics for Woody Held, Vic Power, and Billy Moran. Billy Moran said, quote, "At spring training, it was obvious that Roger was the best athlete on the team. I didn't understand why Cleveland didn't want to keep him." Ray Narleski said, quote, "Roger was shocked when he got traded. He came over to my house in tears." So that was a bummer, losing Roger Maris, one of the bad trades that Frank Lane made. Maris, the guy who broke Babe Ruth's single-season home record in 1961 with the Yankees with 61 home runs. Roger Maris. Dick Brown was a spare catcher. Brown batted .237 with 41 hits. He scored 20 runs, 5 doubles, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, a stolen base, 14 walks in 68 games. And Brown was with Cleveland from 1957 to 1959. Dick Brown. Chico Carrasquel played some shortstop. Carrasquel batted .256 with 40 hits. He scored 14 runs, 6 doubles, 2 home runs, 21 RBIs, 14 walks in 49 games. Carrasquel was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1958. On June 12th, he was traded to the Kansas City A's for Billy Hunter. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1959. He continued as a player in Venezuela until 1967. The inspiration for Omar Vizquel, Chico Carrasquel. Woody Held played some center field. Held batted .194 with 28 hits. He scored 12 runs, 4 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs, 17 RBIs, a stolen base, 15 walks in 67 games. Held was born in 1932 in Sacramento, California, and died in 2009 in Dubois, Wyoming at age 77. For his career, he batted .240 with 179 home runs, and 559 RBIs. Held played for the New York Yankees, Kansas City Athletics, Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, Baltimore Orioles, California Angels, and Chicago White Sox from 1954 to 1969. He played shortstop and outfield. His name originally was Helt, H-E-L-D-T. The name was changed by Held to avoid confusion. He was a bat boy for the Sacramento Solons in the minors in the 1940s. He was traded to the Tribe from the Kansas City A's on June 15th in the Roger Maris deal. He was the first Tribe shortstop to hit 20 home runs, and he did that 3 years in a row from 1959 to 61. He has the Tribe record for career home runs from a shortstop, 85, which was broken by Johnny Peralta in 2009. Probably going to be broken or already broken by Francisco Lindor. In 66 with the Orioles, he won a World Series title. He died at his Wyoming ranch at age 77 after a 7-month battle with brain cancer. In the minors, he played for the Binghamton Triplets, Boise Yankees, Denver Bears, Norfolk Tars, and Quincy Gems. Woody Held. Preston Ward was a corner infielder, first base, third base. He batted .338 with 50 hits. He scored 22 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, 4 home runs, 21 RBIs, 10 walks in 48 games. Ward was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1958. He was traded to the Kansas City A's on June 15th with Roger Maris in the deal for Woody Held and Vic Power. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1959. Preston Ward. Jay Porter was a spare catcher. Porter batted .200 with 17 hits. He scored 13 runs. He had a double, 4 home runs, 19 RBIs, 9 walks in 40 games. Porter was born in 1933 in Shawnee, Oklahoma. He's still alive in 2019 at age 86. For his career, he batted .228 with 8 home runs and 62 RBIs. He played for the St. Louis Browns, Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, and St. Louis Cardinals from 1952 to 1959. In October 2006, Sports Illustrated selected him among the top 10 great characters in Detroit Tigers history, along with Mark Fidrich and Norm Cash. His favorite meal was 2 dozen eggs over light, eaten all at once. He was competing for the world champion, eating eggs at one sitting. However, the champion did not show up for that contest. He was traded to the Tribe on February 18, 1958, from the Tigers with Hal Woodschick for Jim Heger and Hank Geiger. He was a catcher for Hoyt Wilhelm. He used a first baseman's glove to try to catch that knuckleball. After he retired, he was a manager for the Expos in the minors. He's the he's the youngest of the last living member of the St. Louis Browns. His real name was J.W., which does not represent names. It's just two initials. They called him J. It's kind of like Homer J. Simpson. The J stands for J. J. Porter. Randy Jackson played some third base. He batted .242 with 22 hits. Jackson scored 7 runs, 3 doubles, a triple, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, 3 walks in 29 games. Jackson was born in 1926 in Little Rock, Arkansas, and died in 2019 in Athens, Georgia, at age 93. For his career, he batted .261 with 103 home runs and 415 RBIs. Jackson played for the Chicago Cubs, Brooklyn Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers, Cleveland Indians, and Chicago Cubs from 1950 to 1959. He's a 2-time All-Star in 54 and 55 with the Cubs. There's a book came out in 2016 called Handsome Ransom Jackson, Accidental Big Leaguer by Randy Jackson, or his real name was Ransom Jackson Jr. with Galen White. He went to the University of Arkansas and played on the football team. He was a halfback. He played in 2 Cotton Bowls. September 28, 1957, he hit the last home run in Brooklyn Dodgers history before the team moved to Los Angeles. On June 29, 56, he was involved in a game-ending 3-run home runs, including Duke Snyder Jackson and Gil Hodges, the only time in MLB history that happened. A game ended on 3 home runs. On August 4th, he was purchased by the Tribe from the LA Dodgers. Randy Jackson said, quote, "If given the chance, Frank Lane would have swapped his mother." As I said, he was the last Brooklyn Dodger to hit a home run. He was in MLB started when MLB started to record intentional walks in 1955, Jackson received the first one in the National League. And he called his book, quote, One Man's Memories of a Bygone Era, when baseball was really the national pastime and the nickname of its stars could stand on their own. Stan the Man, the Splendid Splinter, the Cuban Comet, and Mr. Cub, to list a few. I realize what a lucky guy I am. Lucky to be the right guy in the right place at the right time. And finally, lucky to still be alive to tell about it. He's the only player to play in back-to-back Cotton Bowls for 2 different teams, Texas Christian University and the University of Texas. Randy Jackson. Handsome Ransom Randy Jackson. Earl Averill Jr. played some third base. Averill batted .182 with 10 hits. He scored 2 runs. He had a double, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, a stolen base, 4 walks in 17 games. Averill was with Cleveland in 1956 and 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1963. The son of the famous and legendary Earl Averill Jr. Carroll Hardy played some center field. Hardy batted .204 with 10 hits. He scored 10 runs, 3 doubles, a home run, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, 6 walks in 27 games. Hardy was born in 1933 in Sturgis, South Dakota, and is alive in 2019 at age 86. For his career, he batted .225 with 17 home runs and 113 RBIs. Hardy played for the Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox, Houston Colt 45s, and Minnesota Twins from 1958 to 1967. He went to the University of Colorado and lettered in football and baseball and track. Was drafted in 1955 in the NFL draft in the 3rd round. Played 1 year in the NFL for the San Francisco 49ers as a halfback and caught 12 passes and scored 4 touchdowns. He was the MVP of the Hula Bowl. With the San Francisco 49ers, he played with Hall of Famers Y.A. Tittle and Joe Perry. He's the only player ever to pinch hit for Ted Williams. The only player to pinch hit for Carl Yastrzemski. He also pinch hit for Roger Maris. On May 18, 1958, it was his 25th birthday. He pinch hit for Maris and hit a 3-run home run to help the Tribe win 7-4. After he retired, he worked for 20 years in the Denver Broncos in the NFL, their front office. He was the player personnel director and built the Orange Crush defense for the Super Bowl 12 team in 1977. Just imagine he played for Y.A. Tittle, the famous photograph where Tittle was in the end zone with blood going down his head. Carroll Hardy. Vic Wertz played some first base. Wertz batted .275 with 12 hits. He scored 5 runs, had a double, 3 home runs, 12 RBIs, 5 walks in 25 games. Wertz was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1963. The guy who hit that long drive in Game 1 of the '54 World Series caught by Willie Mays. Vic Wertz. Larry Raines played some second base. Raines batted 9 times, did not have a hit. He scored a run, struck out 5 times. Raines was with Cleveland from 1957 to '58. This was the end of his MLB career. He continued playing in the minor leagues until 1961 and in Japan in 1962. Larry Raines. Hal Narragon was another spare catcher. Narragon batted .333 with 3 hits. He scored 2 runs, had a triple in 9 games. Narragon was with Cleveland in 1951 and from 1954 to 1959. Narragon was another one of the few players who liked Frank Lane. In spring training of '59, Narragon's 2-year-old daughter was there, and she was playing with this dog, and Lane promised to buy her a dog. And he would pay for it. Narragon was traded in May of '59, and Lane sent Narragon a letter, and he said, quote, "I'm still waiting for that bill because I want to buy your daughter a dog." A month later, Narragon bought a poodle for $100 and sent Lane the bill, and Lane sent him a check for $100. Narragon said, quote, "I know most guys didn't have good things to say about him, but I'm not one of them." Hal Narragon. Rod Graber played some center field. Graber batted .125 with 1 hit and 8 at-bats. He had a walk in 4 games. Graber was born in 1930 in Massillon, Ohio, and died in 2014 in San Diego, California at age 84. His MLB career was just with Cleveland in 1958. He also played in the minors for the San Diego Padres. Rod Graber. Fred Hatfield plays some third base. Hatfield batted .125 with 1 hit and 8 at-bats. He had an RBI and a walk in 3 games. Hatfield was born in 1925 in Lanett, Alabama, and died in 1998 in Tallahassee, Florida at age 73. For his career, he batted .242 with 23 home runs and 165 RBIs. Hatfield played for the Boston Red Sox, Detroit Tigers, Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, and Cincinnati Redlegs from 1950 to 1958. Now, during this time, it was the Cold War, so they weren't calling them the Cincinnati Reds for a period of time. They called them the Redlegs because of you didn't want to be called a Red during the Cold War, because that was another word for a communist. His nickname was Scrap Iron. He was among the league leaders in hit by the pitch in 1952, 54, 56, and 57. He was also among the league leaders in sacrifice hits and intentional walks in '55. In the minors, Hatfield played for the Birmingham Barons, Canton Terriers, Little Rock Travelers, Modesto Colts, and Troy Trojans. Fred Hatfield. Now, the 8th pitcher for the Tribe in 1958 was Cal McLish, who was 16-8 with an ERA of 2.99, 39 games, 30 starts, 13 complete games, a save, 225 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 97 strikeouts. McLish batted .094 with 6 hits. He scored 6 runs, had an RBI, 13 walks, and struck out 25 times. McLish was with Cleveland from 1956 to 1959. His full name was Calvin Coolidge Julius Caesar Tuscahoma McLish, and his father was 3/4 Cherokee Indian, Cal McLish. Mudcat Grant was 10-11 with an ERA of 3.84, 44 games, 28 starts, 11 complete games, a shutout, 5 saves, 204 innings pitched, and 111 strikeouts. Grant batted .076 with 5 hits. He scored 4 runs, had 3 doubles, 5 RBIs, 2 walks. He struck out 17 times in 54 games. Grant was born in 1935 in Lacucci, Florida, and is alive in 2019 at age 83. For his career, he was .145 and .119 with an ERA of 3.63 and 1,267 strikeouts. Grant played for the Cleveland Indians, Minnesota Twins, Los Angeles Dodgers, Montreal Expos, St. Louis Cardinals, Oakland Athletics, and Pittsburgh Pirates from 1958 to 1971. So he was a rookie in '58. 2-time All-Star in '63 with the Tribe and '65 with the Twins. American League wins leader in '65 with the Twins. First black pitcher to win 20 games in the American League. First black pitcher to win a World Series game for the American League. Won an American League title in 65 with the Twins. In the 65 World Series, he had 2 complete games. He had a 3-run home run in Game 6. He was a Sporting News American League Pitcher of the Year in 65. His record was 21-7. 65, he hosted a Minnesota variety show and sang and danced in that show. 65, he was a starting pitcher for the first game. This was later. First, must be 66 for the Montreal Expos. He pitched an inning and a third and gave up 3 runs to start the season with an ERA of 20.25. After he retired, he was involved with the North American Softball League. He was dedicated to the study and promotion of the history of blacks in baseball. He had a tribute for the 15, what he called the 15 black aces on his website, the 15 top black pitchers, including Vida Blue, Al Downing, Bob Gibson, Dwight Gooden, Grant himself, Ferguson Jenkins, Sam Jones, Don Newcomb, Mike Norris, David Price, J.R. Richard, C.C. Sabathia, Dave Stewart, Dontrell Willis, and Earl Wilson. And Grant wrote a book in 2007 called The Black Aces, Baseball's Only African-American 20-Game Winners, which was featured at the Hall of Fame induction in 2006. 2007, President George W. Bush honored Grant, Jenkins, Willis, Norris at the White House. 2008, he threw out the first pitch at Progressive Field, the 50th anniversary of his MLB debut, and was given a key to Cleveland, key to the city of Cleveland. The minors, he played for the Iowa Oaks Keokuk Colonels. He was a Tribe broadcaster from 73 to 74 and 77. One time he pronounced Bucyrus, Ohio as Bucharest, Ohio, which was really funny. Grant wanted to pitch his whole career in Cleveland. When he got traded, he said, quote, "Cleveland is where I started, where I got my first chance, and the only place I liked almost as much as Lacucci, Florida." When Grant signed with Cleveland, his bonus, he said, was a handshake. After he retired, he had a music group called Mudcat and the Kittens. He toured the U.S. and Europe. Grant said, quote, "I loved the Indians, and I always thought they loved me, until apparently they couldn't afford me." So his tribe was having financial problems. His trade in 64 to the Twins, the tribe received cash. They needed money. And when he was traded to the Twins were in Cleveland. And nobody told him he'd been traded. His stuff was moved to the Twins clubhouse. He didn't know what was going on. He put on a Twins uniform, walked out on the field, and some fans said, "What are you doing in that uniform?" And he told them he'd been traded. He had 53 saves, 24 with the Oakland A's in 1970, only one of 6 players who won 20 games in a season and saved 20 games in a season. His career high salary was $82,000 with the Pirates in 71. Grant said, quote, "The high point of my major league career took place before it even started. It was the night I signed a major league contract with the Indians in 1958. And I thought about all the African-American players who had preceded me, Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby and Luke Easter and Don Newcomb and Monte Irvin and Joe Black and so many others. We didn't have a telephone in my home in Lacucci at that time, so I wrote my mother a letter and told her, 'Mom, I made it,' even though it took 3 days for her to get it. As a boy in Lacucci, Florida, and at the family home had a trap door, and sometimes white people would go out shooting into houses for fun. Terrible. And when that happened, Grant and his family would go through a trap door to try for safety. Apparently, he said it was a common experience. And he said, quote, "Born into this kind of hell." Steve Jacobson said, quote, "Militant blacks called Mudcat and Uncle Tom." Grant said, quote, "They said I was giving in to the master. They never thought how intelligent some Uncle Toms were. They were the ones feeding the whole community, bringing back food from the master's house, playing the yes sir stuff. Second wife was a white woman from Austria. Grant said, quote, "There are inequities still, but nothing like the slaughterhouse it was in those days. Today's generation has enjoyed more freedom than I ever enjoyed. Baseball taught us to work together. It put something in our mind of possibilities. Those possibilities grew stronger and stronger. It can never go back." The immortal Mudcat Grant. Everybody loved him. Ray Narleski was 13-10 with an ERA of 4.07, 44 games, 24 starts, 7 complete games, a save, 183 and a third innings, pitched in 102 strikeouts. Narleski batted .204 with 11 hits. He scored 3 runs, had a double, 4 walks, and struck out 19 times. Narleski was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1959, and he played the 1958 All-Star Game. Ray Narleski. Gary Bell was 12-10 with an ERA of 3.31, 33 games, 23 starts, 10 complete games, a save, 182 innings pitched, and 110 strikeouts. Bell batted .196 with 11 hits. He scored 4 runs, had a double, a triple, 3 RBIs, 4 walks, and struck out 14 times. Bell was born in 1936 in San Antonio, Texas, and is alive in 2019 at age 82. For his career, he was 121 and 117 with an ERA of 3.68 and 1,378 strikeouts. Really good. He played for the Cleveland Indians, Boston Red Sox, Seattle Pilots, and Chicago White Sox from 1958 to 1969. 4-time All-Star in 1960, where they had two games, in 66 and 68. They called him Ding Dong. In the minors, he played for the Mobile Bears, Hawaii Islanders. Bell said, quote, "Okay, I horsed around. Still do. I laugh easily and I have fun. I don't take myself or anyone too seriously. But when I pitched, that was something else. I tried as hard as I could. I wanted to win as badly as anyone. Would I have been a better pitcher if I'd destroyed some furniture in the clubhouse or kicked dirt when somebody got a hit? That's baloney. With the stuff I had, I think I was good enough to win at least 200 games. I'm not sure why I didn't, though I'm damn sure it wasn't because I wasn't mean enough. I don't know how hard I threw because they didn't have radar guns then, but I tell people they used a sundial to time me. Things are going well. I had a heart attack in 1992, but I'm okay. It hit me when I woke up and felt sick one morning. It was like having a hangover, but I knew it was something more than that because I hadn't been drinking the night before. 1958 with the Tribe, Bell made $7,000, the MLB minimum. Woody Held said, quote, "Playing with Gary Bell and Tito Francona in Cleveland was like a comedy hour every day. Guys were laughing all the time. Gary especially kept everybody loose. He's one of the funniest men I've ever known. But Bell has a temper. When he'd get mad at the umpire, manager Joe Gordon used to tell me to go talk to Gary, to calm him down. But just about every time I'd go to the mound, Gary would say, 'What the hell are you doing here? Get your ass back to shortstop and leave me alone.' Gary Bell." Hoyt Wilhelm was the closer. Wilhelm was 2-7 with an ERA of 2.49, 30 games, 6 starts, a complete game, 5 saves, 90 and a third innings pitched, and 57 strikeouts. Wilhelm batted .095 with 2 hits and 21 at-bats. He scored a run and had 2 RBIs and a walk. Wilhelm was with Cleveland from 1957 to 58. On August 23rd, the Tribe put him on waivers, and he was picked up by the Baltimore Orioles. So that was an unfortunate move. His MLB career continued until 1972, and he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Hoyt Wilhelm. Don Mossi was a relief pitcher. Mossi was 7-8 with an ERA of 3.90, 43 games, 5 starts, 3 saves, 101 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 55 strikeouts. Mossi batted .115 with 3 hits and 26 at-bats. He scored 3 runs, had an RBI, and struck out 13 times. Mossi was with Cleveland from 1954 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1965. Don Mossi. Don Ferrarese was another relief pitcher. Ferrarese was 3-4 with an ERA of 3.71, 28 games, 10 starts, 2 complete games, a save, 94 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 62 strikeouts. Ferrarese batted .115 with 3 hits and 26 at-bats. He scored a run and had a walk. Ferrarese was born in 1929 in Oakland, California, and is alive in 2019 at age 89. For his career, he was 19-36 with an ERA of 4.00 and 350 strikeouts. He played for the Baltimore Orioles, Cleveland Indians, Chicago White Sox, Philadelphia Phillies, and St. Louis Cardinals from 1955 to 1962. He had 3 doubles in one game. They called him Midget. Went to St. Mary's College in California. Ferrarese was 5'9". Maybe that's why they called him Midget. He was traded to the Tribe on April 1, 58 with Larry Doby from Baltimore for Gene Woodling, Dick Williams, and Bud Daly. 56, he had 13 strikeouts in a game that he lost. May 12th, he had a no-hitter in the 9th, broken up by the Yankees. And Andy Carey. Don Ferrarese. Hal Woodchick was 6-6 with an ERA of 3.64, 14 games, 9 starts, 3 complete games, 71 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 27 strikeouts. Woodchick batted 167 with 4 hits. He scored a run and struck out 14 times. Woodchick was born in 1932 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and died in 2009 in Houston, Texas at age 76. For his career, he was 44-62 with an ERA of 3.56 and 484 strikeouts and 61 saves. Woodchick played for the Detroit Tigers, Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, Houston Colt 45s, and St. Louis Cardinals from 1956 to 1967. He was an All-Star in 63, won a World Series title in 67 with the Cardinals. They called him the Switchman because of his ability to turn out the lights on hitters. Woodchick said, quote, People talk about pressure now, but pressure was driving a wife and child across the country with no contract, a bad back, and not knowing whether you're going to have a job next year. The minors, he played for the Carbondale Pioneers, the Duluth Dukes, Kingsport Cherokees, Danville Leafs, and San Juan Marlins. Hal Woodchick. Dick Tomanek was 2-3 with an ERA of 5.62, 18 games, 6 starts, 2 complete games, 57 2/3 innings pitched, and 42 strikeouts. Tomanek batted 118 with 2 hits. He scored a run, had a home run, 2 RBIs, and struck out 5 times. Tomanek was with Cleveland from 1953 to 1954, and from 1957 to 1958. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1959. Dick Tomanek. Herb Scorer was 2-3 with an ERA of 3.95, 12 games, 5 starts, 2 complete games, a shutout, 3 saves, 41 innings pitched, and 48 strikeouts. Scorer batted .091 with 1 hit and 11 at-bats. He scored a run, walked twice, and struck out 5 times. Herb Scorer was a Tribe player from 1955 to 1959. He was a Tribe TV and radio broadcaster from 1964 to 1997. He's buried in Lakewood Park Cemetery in Rocky River, Ohio. He had a serious elbow injury and was out most of the season. Herb Scorer. Bob Kelly was 0-2 with an ERA of 5.20, 13 games, 3 starts, 27 2/3 innings pitched, and 12 strikeouts. Kelly batted .250 with 1 hit and 4 at-bats and walked once. He was born in 1927 in Cleveland, Ohio, and is alive in 2019 at age 91. For his career, he was 12-18 with an ERA of 4.50 and 362 strikeouts. Kelly played for the Chicago Cubs, Cincinnati Redlegs, Cleveland Indians between 1951 and 1958. He led East Cleveland Shaw High School to the state baseball title in 1944. He went to Purdue University and played for the Boilermakers baseball team. Bob Kelly. Bob Lemon was 0-1 with an ERA of 5.33, 11 games, a start, 25 1/3 innings pitched, and 8 strikeouts. Lemon batted .231 with 3 hits and 13 at-bats. He scored a run, had an RBI, a walk, and struck out 4 times. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942 and from 1946 to 1958. He was released by the Tribe on July 2, 1958. That ended his MLB playing career. He was an MLB manager until 1982 with the Yankees and won a World Series title in 1978 as manager of the Yankees. He's in the Tribe and Baseball's Halls of Fame, and he was a Tribe coach from 1959 to 1960. Bob Lemon. Maury Martin was 2-0 with an ERA of 2.41, 14 games, a save, 18 2/3 innings, pitched and 5 strikeouts. He did not bat. Martin was born in 1922 in Dixon, Missouri, and died in 2010 in Washington, Missouri, at age 87. For his career, he was 38-34, with an ERA of 4.29 and 245 strikeouts. Martin played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, Philadelphia Athletics, Chicago White Sox, Baltimore Orioles, St. Louis Cardinals, Cleveland Indians, and Chicago Cubs from 1949 to 1959. They called him Lefty. He must have been a left-handed pitcher. In the Second World War, he was in the 1st Army's 49th Combat Engineers, and he was involved in Operation Torch, Operation Overlord, and Operation Cobra, and the Battle of the Bulge. In the minors, he played for the Grand Forks Chiefs, Asheville Tourists, Vancouver Mounties, Fort Worth Cats, and Houston Buffs. Maury Martin. Dick Brodowski was 1-0 with an ERA of 0.00, 5 games, 10 innings pitched, 0 earned runs allowed, and 12 strikeouts. He batted once, did not have a hit. Brodowski was born in 1932 in Bayonne, New Jersey, and died in 2019 in Lynn, Massachusetts at age 86. For his career, he was 9-11, with an ERA of 4.76 and 85 strikeouts. 215 2/3 innings pitched. Brodowski pitched for the Boston Red Sox, Washington Senators, and Cleveland Indians from 1952 to 1959. His parents were immigrants from Poland. They spoke a little Polish when he was growing up. He was asked if they spoke Polish growing up, and Brodowski said, quote, "a little," when they wanted to get stuffed by the kids. In the minors, he played for the Louisville Colonels. He also played in Puerto Rico for the Leones de Ponce. Dick Brodowski. Jim Constable was 0-1 with an ERA of 11.57, 6 games, 2 starts, 9 1/3 innings pitched, and 3 strikeouts. He batted 1,000 with 2 hits and 2 at-bats. Constable was born in 1933 in Jonesboro, Tennessee, and died in 2002 in Johnson City, Tennessee, at age 69. For his career, he was 3-4 with an ERA of 4.87 and 98 innings pitched. He played for the New York Giants, San Francisco Giants, Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, and Milwaukee Braves from 1956 to 1962. They called him Sheriff. In the minors, he played for the Nashville Vols, Oshkosh Giants, and Minneapolis Millers, and in Venezuela for Leones de Caracas, and in La República Dominicana for Leones de Escogido. Jim Constable. Steve Ridzik was 0-2 with an ERA of 2.08, 6 games, 8 2/3 innings pitched, and 6 strikeouts. He batted once, did not have a hit. Ridzik was born in 1929 in Yonkers, New York, and died in 2008 in Bradenton, Florida, at age 78. For his career, he was 39-38 with an ERA of 3.79 and 406 strikeouts. Ridzik pitched for the Philadelphia Phillies, Cincinnati Redlegs, New York Giants, Cleveland Indians, and Washington Senators from 1950 to 1966. He won a National League title in '50 with the Phillies. After he retired, he worked as a military food distributor. He organized charity events for MLB players. He helped establish the MLB Players Alumni Association with Chuck Hinton. In the minors, he played for the Schenectady Blue Jays, Utica Blue Sox, and Fort Worth Cats. Steve Ridzik. Chuck Churn had no decisions and an ERA of 6.23, 6 games, 8 2/3 innings pitched, and 4 strikeouts. He did not bat. Churn was born in 1930 in Bridgeton, Virginia, and died in 2017 in Lady Lake, Florida, at age 87. For his career, he was 3-2 with an ERA of 5.10, 32 strikeouts, and 47 2/3 innings pitched. Churn pitched for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Cleveland Indians, and LA Dodgers from 57 to 59. He won a World Series title in 59 with the Dodgers. They called him Slim. In the minors, he played for the Durham Bulls, Denver Bears, Hollywood Stars, Uniontown Coal Barons. And finally, Mike Garcia was 1-0 with an ERA of 9.00, 6 games, 1 start, 8 innings pitched, and 2 strikeouts. Garcia batted once and struck out. He was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1959. He had a slipped disc and was released by the Tribe on June 3rd, but he would come back in the following year. Mike Garcia. After the regular season, the 1958 World Series was played. The New York Yankees, American League champions, defeated the Milwaukee Braves, National League champions, 4-3. The Braves were up 3-1, 3-1 after 4 games, but lost the last 3. Hall of Famers included umpire Al Barlick for the Yankees, Casey Stengel, manager Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle, Enos Slaughter. For the Braves, Henry Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Red Schoendienst, and Warren Spahn. This was the first World Series filmed in color. The MVP was Bob Turley of the Yankees. Yankee closer Ryan Duran had what they called Coke bottle glasses, very thick. Casey Stengel said about Duran's pitching, quote, "The ball makes a strange sound like a small jet as it travels towards the catcher and lodges kerplunk in Yogi's mitt. Duran is a splendid product of the atomic age." This was Casey Stengel's last World Series title. After winning Game 7 in Milwaukee, on the flight home to New York, Whitey Ford was taking the ashes from his cigar, and he painted dollar signs on Casey Stengel's cheeks. Game 3, the Yankees were down 2-0 going into Game 3. TV commentator Howard Cosell asked Casey Stengel if the Yankees had choked in Games 1 and 2, and Stengel said, quote, "I haven't choked up, and none of my players choked up. Ball players don't choke up. But if anybody's going to be choked up, it's going to be somebody holding a microphone." When the Yanks were down 3-1 before Game 5, Peter Golenbach wrote, "There was an air of impending doom." However, Mickey Mantle entered the clubhouse with an Indian arrow stuck in one side of his head and going out the other. And Mantle said, quote, "Now I know how Custer felt." Golenbach wrote, "Immediately the atmosphere changed, and once more there was laughter and kidding." Game 6, the Yankee pitcher Ryan Duran did not like a ball call by the umpire and made the choke sign with his hand to his neck, was fined $250. Duran denied giving the choke sign and said, quote, "I was fixing my tie." Now the MVPs for 1959 in the American League, Jackie Jensen of the Boston Red Sox, and in the National League, Ernie Banks of the Chicago Cubs. And the Cy Young Award, only one given, was Bob Turley for the New York Yankees. So that's the story of the 1958 Cleveland Indians. A lot of funny guys, interesting characters. God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1958 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the First World War veterans, Second World War veterans, and Korean War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp Statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Severance Hall Stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse renegades, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, Great Lakes Science Center supporters, and Holden Arboretum enjoyers. Cleveland is the best location in the nation, on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Munsters, Gladiators, and Fusion rule. And Spiders, Bulldogs, Rosenblums, Barons, Rams, Crusaders, Forest Crunch, Lumberjacks, and Rockers rule. It's been 71 years since 1948. This is our year. To quote Tug McGraw of the 73 Mets, you gotta believe. To quote Kevin Garnett of the 2008 Celtics, anything is possible. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.